Hi, this is Tony Segro. Today I'm going to work on doing a rock mold, and this is the rock here that I want to do. And I'll turn this around. I found this outside, and it has a nice rock face and everything on it, a nice striata or strata or whatever they call that. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use aluminum foil to make the rock mold. And you can buy aluminum foil. This is Best Yet. You can buy it at your grocery store or whatever. It's not really super expensive. It don't have to be a fancy brand or anything like that. But what I do first of all is to cut 3 pieces of aluminum foil because this is fairly thin. And if it's too thin, what's going to happen is it's probably going to tear. So I'm just going to glue 3 pieces of this aluminum foil together, and that'll make it thicker. Okay, so let me just whip out some glue here, and I just put Elmer's in here. Nothing really fancy, just enough to hold the aluminum foil together. Okay. Layer over top of that. Okay, try to keep it as flat as possible. And put some more glue down here. Gotta squeeze it a little bit harder. Just like that. Okay, now put the 3rd layer down. And again, I'll push it as flat as I can. Okay, then I'm going to take that area of the rock where it was nicely striated or whatever, strated. I'll lay that down like this. Okay. Pick it up, flip it over. And let me turn this the other way, you might be able to see better. We'll go in here and just try to press some of that strata into the aluminum foil. Now this isn't going to be the last forming I'm going to do. Once I pour a plaster casting in here, we'll do that also. Let me try to get most of this. I might be able to go in here. And push that down as well as I can, okay? I'm going to lift that off. And in here you'll see where it leaves like a mold or a casting, or mold I should say. Just going to fold these edges up like this. Fold these edges up. Where these come together, I'm just going to fold them around each other and really keep them tight in here so that they form like a bowl. Do the same thing over on this side. There. Up here. Do the same thing here. Like that. Fold this corner. And there, I have an aluminum foil mold for that. Okay, we move to the kitchen now, and this is where I'm going to work with making the plaster casting. Okay, here's the mold that I've made. I'll lay that flat. I just press the corners down here just to make sure that it sits fairly flat on the counter. Okay, this is just a regular silo cup that I use, and it has It has a lot of lines across here. I filled water up. I'm not going to need a whole lot of plaster to fill this. And I'm probably not going to fill it the whole way to the top, because that's going to make it really thick. I don't want that. I'm just going to fill it up here with water, cold water. Okay. A little bit about plaster. Now I use DAP plaster of Paris, but I mean you can use other plaster of Parises or even Hydrocal or whatever you want to use. I like the plaster of Paris. For one thing, when it hardens, it hardens pretty good. I can carve it, paint it, do whatever I want with it, okay? And once I make this casting, I'm going to let it sit for a whole week and let it dry. It'll probably sit here in this mold for about, I'm going to say an hour anyway, till it cures. And then I'll come back after an hour and test it to see if it's dry or not. What I'll do is, a lot of times you might hear people say, oh, use a 3-to-1 mixture or use a 4-to-1 mixture of 4 mixtures of plaster, 4 parts of plaster to 1 part of water, okay? Plaster is different, okay? Sometimes it has a personality of its own. It's going to want water to help make it work. Okay, so I start off with a little bit of plaster here in this cup. Okay, and then I come in and I just put plaster in here, a little bit at a time. And I don't know if you can see, the plaster just dissolves right into the water at first. Okay, but the more I put in, after a while it's going to be, it's not going to dissolve as fast. Plaster loves water, so it's going to soak up as much of that water as it can get. But after a while, if you put enough of the plaster in there, there's not going to be enough water to go around, let's say. And it's going to get to a pancake batter consistency. And that's what I'm looking for, is a pancake batter. Right now it's really liquidy yet. Okay, just shake the cup a little bit, and that sort of helps it dissolve. But once I'm seeing it where it's not really dissolving as much, I might add a little bit more. And I don't know, right now it's just sitting there. It's not really dissolving, although it is a little bit slowly but surely. I'm going to take a skewer here, a wood stick that I have. I'm going to stir it around. Okay, I'm stirring this around. And it's getting there. It's not quite to the pancake batter consistency. But now I think it is, because the plaster I just poured in is just sitting on top of the water. It didn't really dissolve into the water. So now I'm getting to this pancake batter consistency that I want. Okay? And I'm just going to fill in. And I'm just going to let the plaster drip down. I'm not going to pour it in and dump it in there. And what's really weird is, I mean, it's not. It doesn't even cover the whole base of the mold. Or I might just actually bend the corners up a little bit, like this. And I'm just going to let that sit in there for about an hour and come back and check it and see if it's hard. Okay, I let this sit in the mold for about an hour or so, and I touched it, and it's not wet. There's no puddles on it. It's dry, so that indicates that the casting is harder. Okay, now it is fairly thin, so what I'm going to do is to very carefully. I folded down the sides of the aluminum foil, and here's where we cross our fingers. Because this is a fairly thin casting, I'm hoping that I can just lift this around and very carefully remove it from the mold, and I did. That doesn't look like much. I mean, you see some castings and some striata or strata or whatever it is in there. What I'm going to do is let this dry for a week, and then I'm going to come back and carve out some of the crevices a little bit more, with my X-Acto knife, but it does have some kind of a texture to it, which is a good start. So now it's going to sit for a week and dry. Hi, this is Tony Segro again, and this is a week later now that I poured this casting of the aluminum foil rock. And what I did, so you might be able to see it a little better, is I started to paint with isopropyl alcohol. It's a little bit dark there. Try to pull out some of the stuff that I started doing. You see, over here I did do some more enhancing the crevices, making them a little deeper, rounding off some of the rough edges kind of thing, okay? And what I do to do that is very simple. I just use this pointy tool here, and I can go in here and just, make, look at the rock molds or look at the rock casting of how it might be. Take some of this off and I brush it off with a brush. Might be an idea if you have something on, if you don't want plaster all over you. You can also use like an X-Acto knife in here. And you can just come in and make these crevices a little deeper and more pronounced. Okay. And just, brush it off every couple of seconds so you see what you're looking at. Be careful because the mold, when I poured it, is a little bit thin. So you don't want to go too hard in there because you're going to break the casting. But if you take it easy and on, and you can come back and see what you're doing. And again, if it's really white that you can't really see it as well, then just take a little like an eye drop of India ink in a pint of alcohol and swish it around. It gets dark, and then you can just sort of paint the plaster so it's not as white. You can see more what you're doing. I did during the week also took that same aluminum foil, and I made another mold. It's a little bit thicker, and the second mold I went in and actually pressed the aluminum foil into the crevices more, okay, to make them more pronounced. And what I'll do is I'll paint a little bit of the isopropyl with the India ink on here. Okay, and it gives you a little bit of an idea of, maybe I want to go around and carve a little bit more, but this is a little bit thicker. This is a much thicker casting that I made this time, but I can get a little bit more along the edges and such like that. So that's basically what happens with aluminum foil. You can mold rocks with it and everything like that. You can reuse it a few times, but it's always easier to, maybe make another mold because aluminum foil, I think I have I thought I had a box up here, but it's probably somewhere else. It's not really that expensive. So give it a try, and it's another way of doing rock molds.